trunk from Kompot. We are live, guys. Welcome to LEKGOTLA.
Thank you, sir.
We are live. We are live. Welcome, colleagues. It's a LEKGOTLA evening. It's got to be different, you know.
Yeah.
And the principle of LEKGOTLA, those who join late, they are given a space to arrive and settle down. So, yeah, so that's acceptable. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the COMETSA Tuesdays, presenting to you this evening the LEKGOTLA way methodology. We have other colleagues that will still join us. My name is Tsima. I'm your host. And this is COMETSA Television Network, the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Shows are based on the principle we call the idea. We inform and entertain, we develop and educate, we empower and support, we associate and network. That's the idea. This evening, we are dedicating the show to the LEKGOTLA way methodology, but at the same time, we recognize the 29 years of COMETSA, and of course, celebrate our Women's Month. We have invited our women facilitators. So the math is law. They are held back at the places of work. We hope some will join us as we continue. But we wanted to just indulge a little bit on the LEKGOTLA. We're going to do a workshop online, more focusing on the various steps and stages of the LEKGOTLA. And hopefully we are able to pass on this powerful methodology to you, the viewers. We use topic-specific workshops to enable participants to experience and learn the LEKGOTLA way methodology. I always say that LEKGOTLA is not an end on its own. It is a means to an end, like all other methodologies that we use to facilitate dialogues, conversations, conflict resolutions. So is LEKGOTLA, this traditional African methodology of holding dialogues, conversations, and facilitating engagements. So we can think of other methodologies that are very well known out there, like World Cafe methodology, time to think, brainstorming methodology, and many others that exist. I'm going to ask the colleagues who are not talking to just mute themselves, because I'm getting feedback in the background, if you don't mind, colleagues. I'm joined by the facilitators that have spent some time with us unpacking this LEKGOTLA methodology, this indigenous African facilitation learning and development methodology, to take us through this methodology is Rapula Modibane, is Frans Rammutla, Lungisani Xhakaza, and we will be joined, of course, by others as I indicated, and they will introduce themselves, just say a few words, and then we'll then start the process of going through this methodology. We allow ourselves this evening, colleagues, to use our manuals because we regard this as a workshop kind of presentation. So don't feel restricted to refer to this working manual. We call it a participant's guide. But let me hold it here and ask the colleagues to greet you and welcome you to the show. Let me start with you, Rapula. Over to
you. Thank you, Sam. Today is one of those, I call it an interesting day in our lives because it's the first Tuesday of the month August, where next week or before the end of this week, we'll have a Women's Day where we need to respect women, young women, elderly people, disabled people, and make sure that we respect and then also treat them with courtesy. My role today is going to be very simple to make sure that we understand the LEKGOTLA way, we understand how to facilitate the LEKGOTLA way, and how do we make sure that the impact of the LEKGOTLA way, it makes life easier for all the participants. And even in life, you can use it to make sure that you are actually contributing to the problem solving and also contributing to the decision making and strategically going forward. That's a contribution I can make for now, Sam. I think we'll engage as we go forward in terms of LEKGOTLA way.
Thank you. Welcome, Rapula. Let me welcome Ms. Helen. Helen, welcome to the LEKGOTLA. I see you're muted. Welcome to the LEKGOTLA. We're happy to have you here as our regular observer guest. Greetings to you.
Thank you very much, Coach Sam. I'm very happy to be here. This is my first LEKGOTLA session, by the way. I am one of the new members of the COMETSA community, and I'm really looking forward to all these conversations around the LEKGOTLA way, how to use it in different parts of our life, whether the workplace or in life. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I was getting worried because we stated at the beginning that we recognize the Women's Month being August month in South Africa, and then it's all men.
Apologies. I had an emergency that happened. Apologies, but I'm glad I'm on the call now.
Yeah, you're representing all the women that we have invited to be with us in case they don't join. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Over to you, Rammutla, to greet our viewers there. Rammutla, you are muted.
My humble apology. Good evening, Prasem, and good evening, our viewers. Celebrating Women's Day, for me as a social scientist, it's something that I'm familiar with. And I want to wish our women great success. I wish them success in their engagements during this month. And I encourage them to address issues that are challenging them, gender-based violence and femicide. They must address them, develop strategies to deal with them and conquer them. Yes, the topic today we are addressing, the LEKGOTLA way, is also relevant to all the people in our society, including women, because in one way or another, they find themselves in different engagements, and those engagements take different ways. And today we are going to share with them the LEKGOTLA way methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rammutla. Indeed, traditionally, LEKGOTLA used to be attended by men only in those days. And things have evolved. It is no longer exclusive to men because issues of life are not exclusive to men. And in us adapting it to the world of work, we have made sure since 2017 that our facilitators are both men and women. And indeed, also, if you go to the villages and where LEKGOTLA is practiced, you do find men and women together addressing issues. Men in their jackets and women in their blankets to show the seriousness of issues of the community. Thank you for raising that point. Over to you, my brother Lungisani.
Greetings to all of you this evening. I'm delighted to be part of this team. I greet you, Sam, the main coach, and the rest of the team. And Helen, who has just joined us now. Everybody has mentioned that we're right at the beginning of the Women's Month, and we wish them well during this month, and we hope that they will be treated well. Somebody alluded to the GBV. We hope all those things will diminish and go away. So we're happy that we're here this evening for the LEKGOTLA to address this the LEKGOTLA way. Earlier on, Sam spoke about Umkomboti. In the past, those old men with their caps and with long beards and white beards and all this will put ukamba in the middle and sit around in a circle. And then a person who's bringing that ukamba with umkomboti inside will first taste that umkomboti, be the first one to take, to show the other group that there's nothing poisonous here in this umkomboti. So then thereafter everybody will drink freely. They sit around the tree, under the shade of the tree. So without a waste of time, so over to you, Chair, and then I hope that everything well. Thank you.
What a reminder, Lungisani. Thank you so much. In actual fact, as they are seated around the circle, the LEKGOTLA, it will be the women that will bring that the LEKGOTLA. And then there will be one of the elders who will then receive it, who will be probably coming from the same homestead or from the same clan, receive it and put it in the middle, and then they will hand over the what do you call it, that thing that you dish out with, and they will drink it in front of this woman that they brought it, and then after drinking, then only then shall the rest of the LEKGOTLA members be served. Now, if you think of it in the modern day, in board meetings, you do have also around the board table, we have eats, right? So while we are having a conversation and resolving issues in the boardroom, you do have cups and eats, and you will have somebody serving you and then leaving you alone to continue with the meeting. And there's somehow this belief that as you are conversing, you ought to be feeding yourself because you need energy to resolve issues. So you can see the similarities there. Thanks for reminding us of that. We go back to history, but we fast forward, and then we find ourselves in the now and say, how can we borrow from the LEKGOTLA in today's environment without necessarily ignoring today's environment and sitting back in the past? We don't have the Induku because we can't be able to show Induku how it works here, but I have it in the background. So as I speak, just assume that I'm holding Induku, which Rapula is going to explain very well. Oh, thank you so much. I knew you wouldn't let me down. You have your Induku because you're going to be explaining it, but please hold it in a way that is not intimidating, because it is an instrument through which we occupy the space with. It's not a knobkiri, it's an Induku, it's the walking stick of an elder or of the king or the chair of the community. Now, people might be wondering to say, but what these young people in context of the modern day, going back to the old process or tradition, trying to bring it and make it relevant into today's world, are they crazy? No, we are not crazy. We are saying that we will walk with times. And today, when we set together these workshops, they are designed in a way that they are becoming experiential learning journey. And participants do not only learn about the methodology itself and the history of the LEKGOTLA, but they also experience it by participating in both the main LEKGOTLA and the mini LEKGOTLA. Now, The concept of the mini lekgotla is not something that you will have found in the traditional African lekgotla setting, because there wasn't, well, of course, they used to say that if there is an issue that needs two people to consult each other, they will ask them to go somewhere offsite, consult, and then come back to the main lekgotla. We call that consultation a mini lekgotla, which in the modern facilitation system is called a breakaway rooms, right? So we are now in a main lekgotla where the topic is being presented. In the traditional lekgotla, it will be whoever was called the lekgotla will have an opening and give the context to why we are having a lekgotla. And then once they've given a context, and then the floor will be open, and then the Indugu will be in the center, and only the person that's in the Indugu will talk. Rapula will come to that later. So that is where the connection between the breakaway rooms and the mini lekgotla comes in. And I want to make it clear that the main purpose of the first main lekgotla is to put the topic onto the table and provide context in the form of presentation or giving background, which you will find also in boardrooms, where context is given and then the floor is open, or the breakaway happens and people talk. So that is the concept that we want to align with. So the purpose, therefore, of the show today is to take the viewers through this experiential journey and demonstrate how the lekgotla way methodology has been adapted in the modern context and be used as a means to personal reflection, collective learning, purposeful action, and transformation. What is beneficial, and we'll explain that, is the principles of the lekgotla. And at this point, I would like us to take principles one by one, explain at least the first top 10 principles. They are not all of them, but these top 10 principles are really fundamental to bringing lekgotla closer to the modern facilitation methodology. And by so saying, I would like to invite Rapula to take us through the first two principles. Over to you, Rapula. I hand over into to you.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you to my peers and colleagues. You cannot start any environment without principles or rules of engagement. Indugu, this is Indugu in my hand. We call it a secret symbol of traditional authority, leadership, and responsibility. Every individual as entrusted with Indugu must be treated with dignity, honor, respect, recognizing that they represent the institution of traditional leadership rather than a personal interest. Respect for the holder of Indugu is fundamental to preserving the values and the customs, unity and integrity of the common community. A simple thing of Indugu, I'm just going to go to the modern environment. Any parliament, let me refer only to South Africa for now, so that to make your life much more easier. Before the parliament session starts, the speaker of the parliament will always be escorted by that man holding Indugu. He doesn't hold it this way, but they hold it in this way. And they walk from the entrance until where the speaker will sit. And will sit right in the center, where the environment of the parliament is in a semi-oval format. It's not only in South Africa. Just a simple thing. When you look at the United Nations, the formation of it is in a circular format. And the Indugu is being respected. The only difference of that is not called Indugu, but it is Indugu. It's been respected in effect. That's the main purpose of it. A person who's holding Indugu, he's a speaker on the floor. You cannot interrupt. You cannot do anything else until he finishes and hand over Indugu to the speaker or to the person who's chairing the processions up front. And while on the same floor of Indugu, there's a principle one of respecting Indugu. The principle two, that's the rules of engagement in the space. You listen without interruption. And by so doing, by listening, is a sign of respect, wisdom, discipline. Every participant must allow the holder of Indugu and other speakers to express their views without interruption. Respectful listening promotes understanding, encourages meaningful dialogue, and supports informed decision-making for the benefit of the community. What is more interesting about being a good listener in that space is because you're holding Indugu, we might be in Khotla, coming there to come and resolve fights. And in your speaking, when you speak, and I realize that you're not telling the truth, on the street fights, you'll interrupt, but in Khotla, you will never interrupt because I'm holding that platform. You will hold a similar platform to be able to speak. Those are the fundamental two principles or rules of the game within the Lekgotla way. And now I took the Indugu, hand it over back to Sam so as to transform to the next speaker who's going to take us to principle 3 and 4. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Rapula. I managed to get hold of my own Indugu. So I'm taking over Indugu from you. Thank you, Rapula, for sharing those two principles. The next principle that I would like to introduce to you is the honor of the diverse perspectives. That is principle number 3. So in a Lekgotla, there is an understanding that every one of us contribute from a different perspective. And those perspectives are respected because that is really what empowers you, and that really give you a base for your insights in terms of issues. And I think this is one principle that you will find in a number of other modern methodologies of facilitation, that we respect the point of view and from where you are coming from as you address issues, and we don't attack you simply because you share a different perspective throughout. That is principle number 3, and it speaks very much to the concept of diversity in Lekgotla. The second principle, the next principle, which is principle number 4, which you will also find in other principles or other methodologies that are applied in team setup. This one is called maintaining confidentiality where applicable. You know, growing up in the rural South Africa, in Limpopo in particular, when there has been a Lekgotla, and we are always making sure that every clan is represented, or every household is represented. Remember, the households in the African traditional way were almost like a collection of houses or homesteads. One of us will be there. When they come back and give you feedback, they will always give you the feedback on the process and the outcome. They will not give you feedback on the nitty-gritties of who was reprimanded, who was sanctioned, and who said what. They will never give you that. And that is where the principle of confidentiality and dignity comes in. And this is principle number 4, maintaining confidentiality where applicable. So personal experiences and sensitive information shared within the Lekgotla must be treated with care and confidentiality. So those people who give update will give update in such a way that nobody actually gets disadvantaged by having been maybe reprimanded or being sanctioned. So that is the value of principle number 4. I'm handing over now the Indugu to Lungisani that will take us through principle 5 and 6. Over to you, brother Lungisani.
Greetings to all of you again. I thought I want the backing of the noise at the background, so they've opened that read you again. If there's some noise, you'll forgive me because now they're refusing to switch it off now. Let me take you through the two principles, which is 5 and 6. Number 5 says, keep contributions focused and concise. The key thing at the Lekgotla is respect. When we speak, we give one another a chance. We don't speak over one another. So we make sure that participants should make contributions that are relevant, therefore, to the topic that is being discussed. And they should make concise contributions to allow the opportunity to more participants to participate. And the other principle is that participate fully. Everybody is expected to participate, to focus on the Lekgotla. And those who are eloquent, who are able to speak frequently, should also give others a chance to also speak. Those who are more on the quiet side should be encouraged to speak, because the purpose is to develop a balanced and inclusive conversation. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Brother Lungisani. Absolutely. The chair, who is the person that is actually inviting people into talking by way of making the Induku available, his main role is to make sure that there is full participation by every member of the Lekgotla, as Lungisani has said. And then, of course, there's a focus as well. So there's a focus contribution. Thank you so much, Lungisani. I'm gonna handle again the next 7 and 8, and then I will leave 9 and 10 to Rammutla to close the top 10. The other principle is that of respecting silence. Silence in a Lekgotla, I wouldn't say is tolerated. I will say is allowed. Because there's this general belief that when something has been brought to the attention of the Lekgotla, and perhaps it's the first time people are hearing it, or it is so heavy that it needs people to process it, they will give you that space to engage with it. In fact, which means that you are engaging your brain in silence and not pressured to respond before you have actually processed the thought and understood it. And that's why the chair or whoever is conducting the Induku will make sure that people are allowed the space to reflect. And only when they feel they have clarified the thought, they then move forward and indicating that they are willing to take over the Induku and occupy the floor. In the modern systems, you'll hear people saying that silence is very loud sometimes, and is actually a way of communication as well. You might even want to engage the person post-silence to say, as we were all quiet, what was going on in your mind? What were the thoughts visiting you? And then you'll be amazed how much powerful processing happens when there's silence. So that is principle number 7. Rapula, do you want to take principle number 8? I can hand over the Induku to you. You are muted.
Unmute.
I was saying, can the viewer see that I'm holding Induku now?
Yeah.
Let me put that aside. Said, principle number 8 speaks about respect the agreed roles. Remember at the beginning we said when you're on the floor to speak, you need to hold Indugu. Those are the agreed rules, which everybody's got. One of the roles is you do have a chairperson. You'll have a scriber who's going to write whatever you write in. And the chairperson also will make a final output of the whole discussion. So every participant has defined role. Responsibility that contribute to the success of the LEKGOTLA way. Respect these agreed roles. Promote order, accountability, and effective participation throughout the engagement. Participants should honor the responsibility of the facilitator, the holder of Indugu, the speaker, the observer, and all other participants. By respecting agreed roles, the group creates environment built on trust, mutual respect, collaboration, ensuring that discussion remain focused, inclusive, and productivity. Hence, that respect of the agreed roles becomes very prominent and becomes prominent in such a way that we hold our session in a respective and appropriate way. I'll now hand over Indugu to either Sabelo, to Chairperson to hold it back to Sabelo. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rapula. Again, if we go to the modern application, in every setting, there are roles and people are respecting those roles. And the focus is definitely not on the person, but the role the person is playing. And we will come to talk to details on that. Thank you, Rapula. Let me ask Rammutla to talk to principle number 9 and 10. Rammutla, over to you. I know you have Indugu with you. You are muted, Rammutla.
Thank you very much. I'm now in charge, and the symbol for showing that I'm in charge, I have the Indugu with me. Being in charge doesn't mean I'm undermining everybody there, but it means I am giving the opportunity for them to engage meaningfully. More often than not, in the modern setup, people are distracted during meetings by their cell phones, by their tablets, and by their laptops. So it is very important to do away with those gadgets when you are in meetings. Fortunately, in the olden days, such gadgets were not there, and people were giving full attention of the engagements that were taking place. Because once you don't deal, you avoid those gadgets, you will be able to focus, you will be able to contribute, you will be able to engage. That will be principle number 9, be present. Principle number 10, engage with dignity and respect. Dignity and respect, as we listen to other 9 principles, dignity and respect were embedded in all the principles, because we are all equal during the LEKGOTLA. There is no one that we are going to be judgmental on and say, because you are very rich amongst us, then we treat you with respect, and other people that are just ordinary people, we don't treat them with respect. And therefore, dignity and respect is applicable to all the members that are in the LEKGOTLA. Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, this principle, these last 2 principles, being present and engaging with dignity and respect, they are so fundamental, and I think that is one of the gifts that we get out of the Lekgotla that I think often, if they are not followed, we get very clouded by not respecting those that are members of the Lekgotla. And I think if you recollect that Rammutla in 2017, we used to have an elderly people and a young people, but you wouldn't even actually recognize it when we were engaging, even when you are in the heated discussions. You carry this principle because it empowered those who found themselves less knowledgeable to come up and try, and as a result achieve growth very, very quickly. Now we're going to move. Thank you, Dr. Rammutla. We're going to move now into how here at COMETSA we have actually modeled this and how we actually address this point I raised earlier on, where I say that Lekgotla is not an end on its own, but is a means to an end, which means it's a facilitator and an enabler of a particular thematic. There is always a reason why Lekgotla is called for, and that reason is to address a particular issue. And therefore, how we put together these workshops and these manuals are that we always divide the Lekgotla into three parts. The first part, which is the first main Lekgotla, which in the modern system you will call it plenary, the first plenary or the opening, is the part where the context is set, where the topic is introduced, wherein the issues and the challenges and the purpose for which Lekgotla was called are addressed. And how it's addressed is in the form of presentation or case submission. And then from there, we will then go into part two, which we will explain. Now, let's go to part one. Please stay with us, viewers, because you've got to hear all these three parts for you to really understand why Lekgotla is one of the most powerful tools, if adopted in today's real life, can really outshine any other system because it has all features. I hand over to Rapula to then share with us what will then be the objectives of part one. Over to you, Rapula. Indugu, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I do have Indugu with me now. There's an echo. Oh, okay. Yeah. I do have Indugu with me now.
Let me ask the other colleagues are not speaking to me.
Okay, now it's the echo is gone now. So I do have Indugu with me. Then I can have a conversation around objective or introduction of the Lekgotla way. So initially, what our objective is historically origin of African Lekgotla. We need to explain it. The word Lekgotla is an African word used to describe the meeting of traditional court, a council of meetings, public meetings, and these meetings are chaired by the chief, headmen, headmen's, elderly, or the chairperson who will be appointed to head that thing at the time, to head that specific session at the time. You don't hold the Lekgotla if there's no topic. There should be a topic for discussion in the Lekgotla. And subsequent to that, it describes what is the philosophy of the principle of Lekgotla, the role of the king and the headman and the chairperson, the use of Indugu as a facilitation tool, the value of listening, participating, respect, and consensus, modernization of Lekgotla way by COMETSA, and the application of Lekgotla way as a facilitation, learning, and development methodology. Do you know this method or this objectives highlight that you can go back and say, why in the olden days there was no family frictions? It's because they utilized that methodology very well. Why in the olden ways, when there's a friction in Lekgotla, the elderly will sit around the table and resolve the friction. Why in an olden ways, when there's something new coming to the village, it will go be represented in LEKGOTLA and get discussed there, so that everybody is on the same page in terms of what is be discussed. Is a real objective of saying, how do we take this part to next level of saying, I'm now going to hand it over back to Sam in a Ndugu way to make sure that he's taking on to the next level of facilitation presentation. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Dr. Rapula. I now have a Ndugu in my hand. That means I'm on the floor. Let's remind the viewers and the colleagues that the symbolism of holding Ndugu in your hand suggests that you are on the floor and you are sure that everybody is listening to you. So when we open this part, and for the first time you are attending the LEKGOTLA, this kind of objectives are shared with you so that you are able to walk the path with us as we address the thematic. So it's very, very important, and that's why I appreciate Rapula reminding us of those objectives. Now, there is always in coaching, Sis Helen and those of you who are coaches will remember very well that there's always a thematic in coaching. LEKGOTLA is a very powerful tool that very much aligns with the coaching methodology. And there is always an explanation of that thematic. So when we open the LEKGOTLA, we spend a lot of time in getting addressed by why we are here, as the objective is shared, but what is the real topic? I don't know whether you get to hear sometimes African, what is the real issue? What are we here to resolve? So that is the role that is played by somebody who is actually requested to be on the floor and present the topic. So often the presentation will explain how the traditional LEKGOTLA has been modernized for application. I'm talking in the modern setting. Some of the thematics from 2017 that we have been addressing, and today when we run workshops, you will be guaranteed that this will be among the top issues that we use the LEKGOTLA for. One of those is the leadership development. In fact, last week, this team, some of the members of this team were in a workshop where we were addressing situations which has to do with team formations. And so that was part of leadership development. And you will present what about the leadership, so that when we go into the mini LEKGOTLA, we know what about the leadership that we're going to address. Organizational development. These are very, very emotive issues in organizations. When organizations have got no direction or they have no understanding of the values, the missions, and the visions of that they are there for, you can bring LEKGOTLA to discuss it in a way that it unpacks in a very relaxed way what the organization is about. Learning and development, which is exactly what we are doing right now. This is learning and development because we are introducing you to the methodology, and as you are paying attention, you are actually learning. But the LEKGOTLA itself can be used to facilitate a learning in a very relaxed and more respectful way. Coaching and mentoring, as I said, I use LEKGOTLA a lot in team coaching, and then of course in mentoring sessions, because naturally every one of us want to be listened to and want to be heard. And in coaching, as we remember, those of us are coaches, the coach doesn't talk much. In other words, in coaching, you need to give the input most of the time to the person you are coaching. And you talk shortly, you give to the person you are coaching. And the symbolism of that person holding into if he's in team coaching is powerful because it says you are on the floor now, the space is yours, and we are holding the container, and you will be heard. And that attentive listening suggests that when you are talking, everybody will be fully present and your message will come across. The other topics we use is the stakeholder engagement. You know, the concept of stakeholder engagement is very powerful. Normally, sometimes we play cosmetic games to it. But I tell you, if you have people that are defined as stakeholders and they don't feel engaged, you are not going to achieve anything. Similarly with employees. The other topics we use LEKGOTLA is community development. Communities that are facing real issues, emotive issues with different opinions, political ideas, LEKGOTLA is very powerful because it's interesting how once a person has the into, everybody just respect him. People forget even about where the person comes from. So we use it for collective problem solving, you know, where everybody is given a space to suggest solutions. And strategic conversations, this is one area I would like to explore even more. Because in LEKGOTLA, the creativity goes very high. Because LEKGOTLA allows us to have a same brain wave, you know, vibration at the same level. That makes a lot of ideas to be generated. And then, of course, knowing very well that your idea will not be shot at, because everybody in the LEKGOTLA respect the principles of listening with dignity. You will come out full blast, knowing very well that you will be listened to. And lastly, personal and professional development. So those are the kind of topics, if you were wondering, where and which areas of leadership and management can we use in Nduku? Those are the topics. And then, of course, lastly, in this part one, we always say that LEKGOTLA is one of the very quickest, easy to understand methodology. And the reason is because it uses all the senses of a human being. We're speaking, we're demonstrating, we're feeling, we're sensing, especially when we go into the mindfulness through the silence. So you can actually test it. We'll give you the manuals. You will find that all the 6 senses and even the unknown senses of yourself get triggered. I always say that when I'm sitting in the LEKGOTLA, Rammutla will attest this. When you are sitting in a LEKGOTLA, there are certain senses you don't know where they come from. You feel like you are sitting on top of an engine and you don't understand where this positivity, the energy, enthusiasm, this is the power of LEKGOTLA. And the colleagues, Lungisani and Rapula, that were with me at the session last week. I mean, when we started, the participants and the client wasn't quite sure whether it was going to address the issues that they are facing. But by the time we finished LEKGOTLA, one of the groups actually changed the topic and brought issues from work. And in that short period of 1 hour, we're able to work out proposed solutions to their problems. So that is really what I can really say. I don't know whether I quick shortly, without ambushing you, Rammutla, you want to reflect on the point I just raised about the power of LEKGOTLA and Nduku of unlocking even the feelings and the senses that you can't even identify the source. Just unmute yourself if you want to. I'm taking you back to 2017 now, Rammutla. Unmute yourself.
Indeed, with Pachane, that was a wonderful moment. Those days of the LEKGOTLA. When they give the context, I remember you missed one stage. Before we go in for the plenary, we have a networking session that is not prescribed, but that comes natural when we have our refreshments before we go in. That's where we start to know each other. That's where we start to share our business cards before we go into the formal session. Yeah, in the formal session, providing the context was very interesting because we brought in different experts to take us through different thematic issues, but we were able to customize them to our LEKGOTLA methodology engagements. Indeed, the feeling was very good. As we were saying, we had a number of feelings that just came automatic and it was a very fulfilling session. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And as I said, we did experience that, and it was very nostalgic last week when I got reminded of this power of this tool, and yet underrated. So yeah, so I did mention that we need to come up with a particular issue that the LEKGOTLA gathering is going to solve. And by the way, LEKGOTLA is both a term for council meeting, as Rapula has said, but at the same time, the philosophy. So every time we engage on LEKGOTLA, you need to keep these thoughts in mind, or these views in mind, that there is the LEKGOTLA, the meeting itself, called LEKGOTLA, but there is the LEKGOTLA philosophy. The emphasis here in this conversation we are having now is more so on the philosophy, because we want to bring those principles to life. So one of those philosophy, or one of those baseline, is there has to be an issue, and I want us to demonstrate this by bringing the topic to 3 topics that we use to induct participants into LEKGOTLA. One of them is, we call it tool, is a tool 1, we call it the life timeline in decades, reflection. Obviously, we don't have time to be engaging everybody on it, but I don't know whether Brother Lungisani is able to reflect on how was your experience last week when we were addressing the life timeline in decades, reflections from your side. And of course, Rapula can also come in there if he wants to. Over to you, Lungisani. How have you experienced LEKGOTLA applied to address the issue of the life timeline in decades, and how will you explain that? Induku, over to you. You're muted.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, activity 3, huh?
That is, we're looking at
the future.
The tool 1, just explaining the topic that we want to use as a case study, in this case, the life timeline in decades. Just your reflection from last week's session. You don't have to go into the details.
Okay, the future from the life timeline.
No, not the future, just the life timeline itself. Yeah.
Oh, give me a minute. I was having in front of me the future of the life time.
No. That's fine.
Okay. Activity 1. Activity 1.
It's activity 1, tool 1.
Yes, the life timeline in decades. Yes. Reflections and conversations. That's where the participants complete their individual life timeline according to their experience when they grew up in decades. The first 10 years, first 10-year batch, and the second 10-year batch, which is 11 to 20, and then 21 to 30, and so on, in batches of 10. The participants are supposed to reflect on the significance of the life events and important transitions that happened when they were growing up during those batches of 10 years each, and the successes and achievements, and their highs and lows. You reflect on your lows, which is rated 0.5 and below, and the highs 6 and above, and the challenges and setbacks that you encountered, and the turning points. You reflect on the turning points as well, and also the lessons learned. You highlight what did you learn within those years, 1 to 10, 10 to 20, and so on, depending on how old you are, on which batch of the 10 years you are at that point. And then people who influenced the developments when we're growing up, and the patterns emerging across the different decades, and the areas requiring further attention and development. You highlight also the areas that you think they require attention. And then the participant may share reflections, of course, in the mini lekgotla, and the participants are allowed to share in the lekgotla their experiences, how they see it, or how they experience when they're growing up during those 10 years decades. During each decade. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we chose this, we call it Tool 1, was a live timeline in decades, because it's a very emotive topic. If you remember very well, Lungisani and Rapula. It was a very emotive topic, but it was done in such an entertaining way. And then people then found themselves actually unpacking their life in groups of 10 years. I mean, if you think of it, taking them to the first 10 years when they were young, which is the year 1 to year 10, and then taking to the decades 2, as you've said, Lungisani, which is the teenage years, or a childhood, is it teenage? Yes, teenage years, year 11 to 20. Often we don't want to talk about those, and yet those are the fundamental baselines of our lives. And then going into when you are young adults, 20 to 30, and then when you then start becoming a father or a mother or a husband on the wife age, 30 to 40. And by the time actually we took them through that, because we're using the lekgotla and nobody's allowed not to listen, nobody's allowed to judge, nobody's allowed to interfere, and everybody's supposed to listen. And then in the mini lekgotla, then they then unpack and then take the lessons from there without specifically mentioning which aspects of their highs and lows actually taught them what about life. That was one way of just showing how lekgotla can penetrate any topic of life that you can think of. Thank you so much, Lungisani. I know I might have not, I might have moved you from what you would have loved to come back on, which is the future from the life timeline. You'll come in there. Rapula, what was how did the lekgotla last week unpack the concept of the wheel of life? I mean, that is another powerful tool, the wheel of life. Anybody in coaching will know about the wheel of life and how we mapped it with the lekgotla and how powerful was it. Over to you. There's your Induk.
Thank you, Sam. What is more important in this scenario is when you take from the life timeline decades into a reflection, and you take that and you put it into the wheel of life. And in so doing, what you're doing is you take that, it's an assessment tool which helps you as a person, as an individual, to evaluate your current level of satisfaction. And you move from there to the critical key areas of your life. And that wheel of life, it also provides a visual, you picture your personal balances. And in that pictorial space, because either you can put it in there, that wheel, if you recall, the wheel is so round, where at some stage in terms of key of your life is, where are you in terms of your health and well-being? Person like myself will stop going to the gym, so which means in my rating that will be 1 or 0. Where are you in terms of your family and relationship with family? Are you in good terms, bad terms? So that reflection is that coming to you as an individual of saying, from here, how do I grow? Because the probabilities are in that wheel. You cannot have all 5s and then it becomes a wheel on its own. Something's not right. Or have all 2s. Or have all 10s. It's somewhere else. There should be sort of a
We're losing you, Rapula.
What is there which you are taking? Sorry?
We are with you. Carry on.
So I thought you were speaking. What is there? Oh, okay. Yeah. What is there as an individual that makes you to grow? What do you have to make sure that you are growing as a person? Remember, it's a will. It's not something which is a line, linear, or where you can say it's a graph going up and that graph will go down. No, it's a will. And the reason why it's a will is to help you as an individual. Where am I in that reflective mode? Which area is actually lacking to have me as a balanced person? Where am I spiritually and cultural well-being? Where am I in community and social contribution? Where am I in my, do I have a leisure? You know, I often say to the entrepreneurs, because I'm mentoring most of them in terms of entrepreneurs, said, as an entrepreneur, I know you're a jack of all trades, but if you can take leave and leave your staff behind and carry on the office, I take the hood out of you. I respect you, which means you've got confidence in a team which you are working with. And in so doing, your business is growing. You allow them to make mistakes, but you've given them a borderline to say, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. That will of life, do you know, when the team started reflecting on it, they started saying, oh, my life is not balanced. I'm focusing more on well-being and my family is, or relationship is suffering. Oh, I'm focusing more on my career and my business, but my personal growth is suffering. Oh, I'm too much spiritually to an extent that I'm not even involved in giving myself a time for leisure and recreation. So somewhere else, you need to have a balance. And then you can take the entire will of change and the entire will and put it in the khotla, in communities. And you can build also the will of the community in terms of where they are. And in so doing, you start building what you call, you can take that and put what you call a growth model. You know, your coaching growth model. You can use the will to build up the growth model, either of the individual or as a group. But that's how now you start going back. Oh, I thought the Lekgotla way is for that elderly people who doesn't have anything to do, sit there and you go to them. They said, no, you can't have a stand here. Sorry, you need to pay this to have a stand. They said, no, you're wasting my time. This is my ancestors' area. I can have a stand anywhere else. I said, no, you can't. Because there is way of utilizing it for the growth of the community, of the individual, and the entire at large, so the society can grow on its own. That's how that will of change, the will of life, emanating from that specific area to you as a person. And what helps in terms of will of change? It helps you to have a clear understanding of your current life of balance. It helps you to have a greater awareness of your strengths and challenges. It helps you as an individual personalize action plans to improve your own priorities. It also helps you as an individual to increase your motivation level to make positive, sustainable life changes in yourself. That's how that will of change, in my view, has also helped me as a person and the communities we were with last week in the sessions of the Lekgotla Way. In so doing, I take the Ndugu Way and head back to the chairperson, Sam, so as to go next.
Thank you. Absolutely. Let me just remind you the pillars of the wheel of life that we tackled last week. It was, as you mentioned, fun and recreation, physical environment, business and career, finances, health, family and friends, romance, and personal growth. I mean, these are all very emotive and very sensitive topics that if you don't actually have a tool like or a methodology like Lekgotla, people may actually close up and not even want to see the dashboard. But when you have a Lekgotla and you have these principles of Lekgotla, it's amazing how actually it was unlocking and empowering at the same time. Having gone through the life timeline in decades and having reflected on how people have lived their life, now they are here, there, now and then, there and then, and they're having to recalculate the dashboard, and then the dashboard revealed to them that so many things need attention. How do I fix this? Therefore, I hand over the tool, the Indugu, to Lungisani to take us to tool number 3, which was then the answer to the picture and the dashboard outcome that was highlighted by engaging with the wheel of life using the Lekgotla. Over to you, Lungisani. How did we help them to work out the solutions after revealing the gaps and the areas of growth, of development? Over to you.
Is that the future of the timeline?
Yes.
Oh, activity 3. So that's why each participant completes now an individual action plan based on the area of improvement that they identified when they were doing that activity that I explained earlier through the life timeline and the wheel of life exercise. The action plan should identify the following: the area requiring attention, the desired future outcome, the action plan to be taken, the support or resources required, and the intended time frame, because they should put a time frame. It can't just be open-ended. There should be a time frame to monitor the plan. And then the first practical step should also be identified. And the method, they should devise the method for monitoring the progress. There must be a method to monitor the progress so that it doesn't just become loose. And the person or structure that may provide accountability. Well, there must be accountability. The aim here is to translate the personal reflection into an intentional action. The action should not just be passive, it should be intentional. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is the most interesting part for me. That was this exercise, because it's one thing to reflect on your life journey and then produce your current dashboard using the wheel of life. But it's another thing to say, now that I know of my gaps, my weaknesses, I need to do something about it. From a coaching point of view, that's what you want to see in your coaches. You want them to having noticed the areas of growth. You want them to have a plan. And as you highlighted, Lungisani, wow. I even felt like we needed the whole day now for people to hash out their plans, the way the energy level was so high. And this is, Rammutla will vouch on this. When the Lekgotla comes towards the end, that's when the energy levels shoot through the roof. I've never ever attended the Lekgotla and found people punchy in the last hour. That is actually the hour when people feel like we should be starting now. And that is exactly as you are, because now it becomes so personal, because it speaks to each one of them revelations, and now they are engaging with it, saying, no, I can't live my life disorganized like this, or I can't live my life without solutions. So that's what's really beautiful. Anyway, now what is then very critical, and I think I'm gonna ask Rammutla. I keep on going to Rammutla because Rammutla is a graduate of a very intensive program in 2017. It doesn't even need the manual. Share with us, Rammutla, your experience of this exciting part when we finish with the first main Lekgotla, and we are now putting together mini Lekgotla. Without going into too much details, but just the what the dynamics that take place when we are putting together mini Lekgotla and going out into our separate mini Lekgotlas. If you don't mind reflecting, just unmute yourself.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that indeed, that is a very exciting moment, because when we are given the directives to implement in the mini Lekgotla, that's where we are directed that when we arrive there, we need to give the name of our mini Lekgotla, and that is where we are expected to nominate or to elect the chairperson, the scribe, and that is where we are expected to have a very specific form of introductions. Because in the introductions, you must give your name, you must give your English name and your traditional name. And then we give you the opportunity to explain how did it come about that you are called that traditional name. And you must tell us where you come from. Yeah, I was very happy to inform my team that I come from Eddingvale, formerly known as Dindela. And I shared with them, young as I was, there was a man called Mankabinde, working with long sticks and entertaining people. Yeah, so we will go into the topic using the Lekgotla methodology, respecting the chairperson who will be holding the Induku. So the participation will go on using the methodology, and when we finish, of course, we'll go into plenary, and all the 4 groups will present their findings. And then at the end, as you say, it was very exciting, because then individually we have to check out, and part of the checkout is how have you benefited, and how are you going to use the skills and competencies you learned through the Lekgotla. Yeah, thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well summed up. I'll take over the Induk now. Thank you so much, Ndade Rammutla. You may think that it's cosmetic to focus on people identifying themselves and recognizing why they were given names they were given. I mean, the answer is simple. In Africa, people don't just get given names. There is a story behind each of our names, and we honor the names that we are carrying, because these names we are inheriting them from our forefathers and foremothers. And this kind of identity in the modern system gets destroyed by not allowing it to evolve, because we were made to adopt names that have nothing to do with our stories. And that's why in the conceptualization of our Lekgotla methodology, we don't introduce ourselves in the first main Lekgotla. And we do that purposefully because we want to force people, if I may use the word force, but actually say encourage people when they get into the mini Lekgotla to be invested in knowing each other in those small groups before they can actually engage in topic, to remove any blockages that might be there. Unless you have been proactive and came earlier to Lekgotla and used the first 1 hour, which we normally call it networking, which many of our Lekgotla people used to do that because they say, yes, I don't want to know people only in the mini Lekgotla because we don't get given enough time to connect. And then we will allow people to come early to network, to get to know each other. But the formal introduction, structured one, which we think carries a lot of weight in terms of diversity, origin, identity, associations, culture, and you name it. It happens in a facilitated way in a mini Lekgotla. The other point that Rammutla has touched on, which is very important in the concept of our methodology, is the identity of your group is very important, because you have to explain to us what happened in the group that made you to give your group a certain identity. The other reason is that we also make you to use that self-introduction to determine who will be suitable for which roles in the mini lekgotla, the roles of the chairperson, the secretary, the scribe, because those are the people that are going to represent your mini lekgotla back in the second main lekgotla when you give feedback. That structure, that governance, that discipline, I call it ritual, it unlocks a lot of people who take teams for granted and short circuit and rush to dominate without actually working through establishment of the ethos of a team. And that get achieved in a mini lekgotla, irrespective of whether it was 1 hour, 30 minutes, or it was 20 minutes. Thank you, Ntate Rammutla, for summing up actually the work of the mini lekgotla. Maybe what I want to then ask the colleagues to just to reflect on last week once again, when we thought that we are going back to the second main lekgotla, which for us, according to our model of lekgotla facilitation, is the climax of a lekgotla. Can you imagine that Rammutla, a lekgotla without the feedback being called off? That will not be a lekgotla in terms of our methodology, right? So what happened then last week, we had cut off the feedback part, which is part 3. But when the people were in the mini lekgotla, the energy were boiling up. Remember, I told you, I've never seen a model that actually where the energy levels build up as you go through part 1, part 2, and reach the climax when you are in part 3, where you are now doing what we call consolidation of the learnings, and then checking out with takeaways. Believe you me, when we had cut off part 3, after people had indulged in part 2, we were told that, no, man, we need to allow the people to come back and feedback, because as the leadership of the workshop was working around during mini lekgotla, they were engulfed by positive energy, enthusiasm, engagement level that they have never actually thought could be achieved after having spent the whole day attending other sessions. And boy, what happened? Lungisani. What happened, Rapula, are you there? What happened when the part 3 was reintroduced and became the highlight of the whole session? I don't know whether Rapula is there to because he was chairing that part 3, the Rammutla, and he was nominated by me on the floor. Lungisani, do you have any reflection? Rapula, please share with people what happened to you there, because and to go over to you, my brother.
Thank you, Sam. So I'm running up and down, but I'll be okay for now. I think I even raised with Sam in terms of that reflection on that day of saying what I've picked up from the people inside is to say, when they come back to come and do a reflection, that's when the deeper insights of the principles and the tools of lekgotla kicks in, because some decided to take specific topic in their work environment to come and reflect on it themselves, of this is what they're going to do when they leave here. And for me was to say, there's an impact we wanted to see. There's an impact we wanted to make sure that when we leave here, this community of this institution are now going to work together. No more work as sort of individuals. And that for me at the time, my aha moment which I took out of that was to say, do you know, I've not been practicing this very effectively for a long time, but it's more impactful because some of the guys in one of the sessions were towards the end when they were writing the notes, what they're going to say about this, they were informing other participants that, guys, this is an exercise which you need to be truthful to ourselves, but you're not truthful to ourselves. And that's not the purpose of this exercise. And you're not truthful to the work environment. And that's not the purpose of this exercise. It's now your platform to give a true reflection of yourself, your community, and the work environment. You're not true to yourself. And that for me was to say, wow, it reminds me, my very first LEKGOTLA way. Do you recall those days when you spoke about mindfulness? At that time, when it took you are in a transition of the person moving from the trench environment to try to establish business. That was my aha moment at mindfulness at the time. And when you come and do a reflection of it in a new environment with new people, you start realizing how impactful is that. And I so wish a person can go and revisit those teams again. Even it could be in 6 months' time, and ask them what has changed in their life. You'll get different stories which will change in their life. So that's for me on that Saturday, on that Friday afternoon. And remember, we did the LEKGOTLA way during the graveyard session. After the guys have eaten, and in the process, enjoying themselves a beer. The bar was open. So what the purpose of the bar was for them to open up so that they should not have restrictions. And that's the purpose of taking it. He said, oh, wow. On a self-reflection in the LEKGOTLA way, take this and prove growth models. You have achieved, you're optimizing your goal. This was my aha moment on Friday last week.
Yeah,
that's a I can do for now.
Thank you. I have been Duguna. That was beautiful. I even went to the leader of the facilitators and said, you have opened this up, we can't close it. You need to make sure that there is a mechanism to take this forward back at work. And that was happening when exactly the point you raised, when the other colleague challenged people and say, you are not being authentic. That vulnerability will have not happened if you did not create a safe space through the LEKGOTLA methodology. And that was really well received and appreciated. When I saw people becoming teary in their eyes, I knew that that's the LEKGOTLA I know. And remember also Rapula and Lungisani. We were supposed to do this in a 3 hour. We packed this in almost 1.5 to 2 hours. And we still achieved the impact that we know LEKGOTLA to be able to do. Now imagine if you take these 3 parts and you do them over 3 days, that Rapula and that Rammutla and Helen and Lungisani. How much you will unpack, but nevertheless, the objective was to demonstrate what it can do. And I think that, as you have given feedback, Rapula, we did achieve, in my view. So I'm mindful of time, and I'm sure Helen has got so much to reflect on, but we do provide time until the top of the hour because we knew that this was going to be mouthful, and we also want to make sure that we also don't short-circuit this. Before we're going to check out with commitments to our LEKGOTLA philosophy, I would like to pause here and bring Helen in and ask her to give us a most objective, neutral reflection on behalf of our viewers as to what she has heard us talking about, and feedback to us. Over to you, Sister Helen. Introduce yourself and greet our listeners again, and give us your reflection, the LEKGOTLA way. I hope you have Ntugu in you, otherwise I will just visually visually hand over Ntugu to you.
I also visually take it from you. Thank you so much, Abuti Seme. And greetings once again to our viewers and listeners out there. What an interesting topic. I really did not expect much, and I didn't know what to expect. But I walk away, gentlemen, thank you so much, feeling very informed. My interest in learning about this Lekgotla methodology has been raised through the roof. I can see from everything that you have explained how effective this kind of methodology would be. I am an HR executive of over 20 years. I have sat in discussion after discussion, in meetings, in workshops, facilitated all kinds of sessions with, from, your junior leaders to, senior executives. And I have seen how, we can have meetings about meetings simply because all these principles that you're talking about that are part of the Lekgotla way are not there in the meeting. So I loved seeing just the structure and seeing how the value of these principles. And I think from everything, all these principles that I'm seeing, which is cutting through kind of the 10 principles, it's just the theme around diversity and inclusion, right? Diversity of points of views, diversity of thinking styles, inclusion of everyone. Every speaker gets to speak. How often do we have meetings, important meetings, where people with real issues don't get to speak, and then the loud speakers are the ones that have the platform. So really interesting. I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask around listening without interruption being one of the principles, and we all know how key listening is as a leadership skill, how key it is as a skill for in every situation that you can think of. How do you encourage people, in this day and age where people in meetings or in workshops listen to respond, as opposed to listening to understand, as opposed to listening to really build on what this person is saying, so that we can actually see and get the whole creativity out of the idea? So how do you build this listening, and how is this played out in the Lekgotla methodology in such a way that listening really becomes a skill that can start to be demonstrated and built? Obviously it takes time, but in that methodology, how do you make sure that you build on that?
Let's answer that by, let me hand over the Induku to Rapula. Over to you, Rapula. Do you want just quickly interject there and respond to Helen's question?
Thank you, Chairperson. Now my Ndugu is on my hand. It's my turn now to respond to this scenario. Sis Helen, when you start the engagement, you start with the principles first. And the principles is more like putting rules of the games on the table. And once it's there, if you realize that in a conversation, because they're always sitting in a circular format, they're not sitting in a class format, it's a circular format. So everybody can see one another. Hence, the breakaway sessions, it's in that format where the people are sitting there, they're not sitting in a class format. So you can see one person who speak. In so doing, it becomes easier to read the focus. It becomes easier to draw attention, and it becomes easier to identify who is not focused in the space. And you can easily take in Ndugu and hand it over to that person. What's your input? So that the concentration will be inside. All of us must be in the same basket. I hope that helps in terms of saying, how do you draw up the attention for everybody must be able to hear, and how do you make sure that the person who's quiet is that person listening attentively to make sure that the input become progressive and successful. That's one of the areas which can utilize it. I'm handing over that into go back to the chairperson. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Rapula. I receive it. Exactly, Ms. Helen, I'll come back to you because it's your floor. Exactly, Ms. Helen, why Indugu is so, can I use the word sacrosanct? If I can. As Rapula was explaining, if you look at Parliament is taken from Indugu, I call it Indugu, but there's a word for it, that the speaker walks into the Parliament carrying it. It is exactly there to conduct things, and is highly respected because you are on the floor when you are holding Indugu. The reason why we use Indugu, also from LEKGOTLA philosophy, is the chair is not just handing over Indugu. As you see what I'm doing now, I'm not just receiving it, handing over. I edify, I add more, I direct, and one of the things that are the key deliverables of whoever is the chair using Indugu is to notice those that are talking more unnecessarily, and notice those who are withdrawn completely, and use my power to hand over Indugu to those who are not speaking, because in most cases they are not speaking because they are fearful, or they are being dominated, or they are not, they don't have a drive to move in. Yes. And as I'm on the floor, one of the principles is to listen attentively, because if I have finished my thought and I hand over Indugu to the chair, and you take that Indugu and you proceed with the new thought without reflecting on my thought, especially if I expected you to reflect on it, that is against the principle of the LEKGOTLA, and that says to me, you haven't been listening. And therefore, I can actually take Indugu back and say, listen, one of the key principles of the LEKGOTLA is not to introduce new topics when there's an outstanding issue from the previous person that requires our reflection, and you ignore it or you miss it because you were waiting for Indugu to arrive, and then so that you can talk. And you defeat the fundamentals of collectivism, the fundamentals of community, the fundamentals of collective solutioning. I hand over back to you, Cecilia, eventually.
Thank you very much. I take the Indugu back. I think you've covered all the other issues, because there's also one of the principles, and I must get to it now, that talks about be concise and straight to the point, which is exactly what, I think you alluded to it. And I thought, how then do you facilitate this? Because there would be people with different, communication styles, right? How do you make sure that you get what they're trying to say, whilst at the same time driving this be concise and straight to the point? But I guess in the facilitation, if you want to, give insight on that, that would also be good, because we've seen how different communication styles can also derail, a meeting or a discussion. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Let me receive it back, and then I will want Rammutla to come in. And
I hand over the Indugu back.
Thank you. And when we say be focused and concise, we don't mean restricting you. We just want you to stay within the topic. That's basically what that principle is about. Right. And we also want you to over-elaborate, as long as the aim is to edify the message that you are bringing across. We will only interfere if you start waffling and repetitively and play to the gallery. If you notice, the order that is brought by Induku is that such that we don't play to the gallery in Lekgotla. Once you start playing to the gallery, you lose the concept. Let me ask the two colleagues, but at the same time, let me acknowledge Ceci Tuli online and for posting wonderful reflections. And also, I think there are other colleagues that I put earlier on. It was, I think, let me put it back. Is Refilwe Mukonyane as well. We acknowledge you, Ceci. You mentioned there you first came into contact with talking stick from Stephen Covey. I did not realize it was used. It was used the same manner in our indigenous Lekgotla. I thought it was only the chair, Khosi, who holds the stick. Of course, traditionally that's how it was. But with our modernization and integration with other methodologies, we are making it roaming, but it still belongs to the chair. It still belongs to the king. Let me hand over to Rammutla and Lungisani after Rammutla, just to reflect on the few points. Thanks for Helen for engaging us in the way you are engaging, because I thought you were just going to reflect, but you have just address. Thank you so much. And to go over to Rammutla.
Thank you very much, Pachani. I think on the issue of being precise and concise, I want to remind the viewers that part of the directives we are given in our mini Lekgotlas is the time allocated. And therefore, the person who's holding the Induku has the responsibility to ensure that all of us remain focused and our contributions are concise without doubling. And therefore, we will be able to address a lot of issues within the time allocated. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Rammutla. Please bring back the Induku so I can hand it over to Dr. Lungisani. Thank you. I receive it, and then I hand over to Lungisani to comment. Over to you, Brother Lungisani. You are muted. You're on mute, Lungisani. It looks like you are battling to get back there.
Oh, I think I didn't hear you. Apart from the noise, your volume is very low compared to others. I didn't get that.
Apologies. Okay, let's proceed. Lungisani is at a spot that is a bit noisy. Helen, it's still your floor. Have you finished reflecting for us? Can I hand over Induku back to you?
Yes, thank you, Abutseme. I take the Induku back. I think I saw one of the comments saying, you know, they would love to see me take the Induku back. I wish I had a physical one here as well, and then I can participate like the gentleman properly. But I'm sure in the future I'll get the opportunity to hold a real Induku in a proper discussion. Yes, I think, you know, I have said the majority of my reflections. I also love the exercises that you do, the one about the lifetime timeline in decades. I mean, I can just see how powerful that must be. You know, Abutiseme, you know a little bit about my story, but I'm entering my, you know, a new decade actually this year. I'm turning 50, and as I go into this decade, I have been already reflecting on what is this decade about and what am I going through. And I can just see how rich this reflection must be for anybody to go through that throughout their lifetime. The same with the Wheel of Life. We know how rich and really meaningful the feedback that can come from that when you do the reflection. And I love that once they've done the reflection, it's not just about the reflection, it's what are we going to do about it? And all those areas that you cover around action planning sounds like, you know, the participants must walk out of that lekgotla with a really clear and concise action plan, an actionable action plan, right? That they can do something about and really be able to look back and say, I started there, but this is where over time I have been able to get to. So my interest in the lekgotla methodology has been raised to the roof. That's what I can say. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights and your experiences with this methodology. I did not even think it could be this rich, and I really think it's so rich and so powerful as a facilitation methodology that, yeah, I can see it work in different environments. So thank you very much. That's it from my side, and I hand over the Indugu back to the chairperson.
Thank you, Cecile. And you have virtually held it in a way that satisfies Tuli's request. Thank you for doing that. I hand it over Indugu now. I hand over Indugu now to Rapula. I will delay the checking out that is going to be facilitated by Rammutla. I hand over the lekgotla commitments facilitation to Rapula. It's a matter of reading the statements and commitments, which is always what we do at the end of every lekgotla before we check out. Over to you, Rapula. Symbolically, there is a Indugu from me. You're on mute, Rapula.
Wrong here. I received, Chairperson. Sam, as a reflection, normally when we conclude this, we go back and say, how do we make sure that our participation today take us to make a commitment? You can make one principal commitment, or you can make as many as possible, for as long as it does something, changes in your life, positively, enhancedly, or even beyond the reach. Hence, I'm saying, as we conclude today, each one of us would be invited to make a personal commitment to apply at least one principle or value or practice during the during this session, either in their workplace, in their families, in their organizations, in the community, or even their professional life. So any one of us will be briefly shared their commitment with us here in a group to demonstrate their intention to translate their learning into a meaningful action. This commitment reinforces personal accountability, promotes continuous growth, encourages us participants to become ambassadors of our respective leaders, effective communicators, and positive change within our spheres of influence. I now asking you, in conclusion of this session, that you will revisit our regular commitment, measure the positive impact of our action over the times. The question is that, as a result of this, how do you commit? I'll take one principle which I'll practice and apply, and the principle of active listening with respect, which will ensure that every person has an opportunity to speak without interruption, and all contributions are made before the decisions are made. That's what I will take. I'm going to ask and hand it over to each one of you to choose which principle are they taking home with, to make sure that our effort today is not a fruitless effort, it's a fruitful effort. I now take Indugu to the chairperson to ask each and everyone for commitment, to make a personal commitment in this sphere of our space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rapula. Thank you so much. It is a very important practice over and above giving feedback from mini Lekgotla that each of us, as we walk away from the second main Lekgotla, having had feedback and resolutions, that we take one particular commitment. As part of the exercise, and also meaningfully so, not just for the purpose of educating our viewers, I would like to hear Lungisani, which particular commitment after today's conversation do you take with home before we are going to check out? Over to you, Lungisani.
Is that me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity, reflecting on what transpired or occurred last week. One is getting used to it more and more, and I can see that we're going further. It will take us even further than this. So these opportunities like this, I think they'll build us even more and give us even more experience. I'm looking forward to more of these opportunities, and I thank everyone who participated from last week, even now, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Lungisani. I know you are being pressured where you are, and you even forgot to hand over to go back to me, but I received it visually and physically here. Cecilia, this was your first Lekgotla on this Women's Month, and you represented all women out there and within the COMETSA network. What is your commitment after having been introduced to Lekgotla today as you go back home? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson, and I take the Indugu back to me. Firstly, I must also say Happy Women's Month to all the women out there, especially those who are listening today. I think the one that I want to take, the one principle that I want to take away from myself is the one about be present. We live in a world where we are overloaded with content, we have conflicting priorities, and there's always something on the go. And really what I want to take home and what I want to take into the spaces that I operate is being able to be present, and put the phone away and listen intently, and be present in everything that I do and the discussions that I hold. So that be present is what I want to take with me. I hand over the Indugu.
Thank you, Cecilia, and it's been wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for representing all the women out there. Happy Women's Month to all of you. Let me do my own commitment because I want Rapula to adjudicate if I may use the word adjudicate or facilitate the checking out. For me, the principle that I would like to keep on practicing, as I have started already through attending a lot of supervision for my coaching, and I've realized the power of being there and really enjoy the silence. That is the principle that I would like to deepen more for myself, because I think I take away a lot when I practice silence, which suggests also that I listen and which suggests that I'm fully present. But the starting point is enjoy the silence and what it delivers. That's my commitment that I'm taking from the session today. I hand over the Indugu to Ndate Rammutla to first lead us into checking out and also facilitate our checking out. Over to you, Ndate Rammutla.
In brief, the principle that I'm taking home, the principle of confidentiality, of course, it comes from my practice as a social scientist. What is in the room must remain in the room. Sometimes certain information is classified, and when you take it out of the room, outside, you're putting your organization into disrepute. So that is the principle that I'll practice going forward. After all is said and done in our LEKGOTLA methodology, we have developed the checking out methodology, which I will outline, and then we are also going to check out using that methodology. So our checkout represents the formal closing stage of the workshop. It allows participants to reflect on the experience, consolidate their learning, and identify how they will apply the methodology after the workshop. And this is how we do our checkout. One of the group members represented the group and facilitate the group in responding to the following questions. The first one is confirmation. I will respond, and my colleagues will also respond depending on time. I can confirm, colleagues and viewers, that tonight has demonstrated to me that the LEKGOTLA way methodology exists, especially when my colleagues come from testing it last week Friday. Tonight it was just a consolidation that the methodology exists. And the aha moment that I experienced tonight, is that looking at my personal experiences in different meetings that I'm attending, it has come very clear that the seating arrangement is very important. As Rapula has indicated sometime that we sit in a circular form. I have noted that the way we are sitting as we are constrains the communication amongst the members. So new insights, definitely the LEKGOTLA methodology is going to contribute to modern way of engagements. Take home. My take home is that obviously I'm part and parcel I'm part of the team that is advocating for the successful implementation of LEKGOTLA methodology and aligning it with modern practices. So yeah, let me leave it here. Obviously, my colleagues will contribute on the new practices, the new behaviors that needs to go with the implementation of the LEKGOTLA methodology. I hand over the Ndugu to Rasem.
Thank you, Dr. Rammutla. I'm mindful of time. I think we can speed it up. Dr. Rapula has already sort of like done his closing remarks. Do you want to read that closing statement, Dr. Rapula, and then I can close the show? Or you covered?
Unmute.
Unmute, Dr. Rapula.
Oh. You are right, Chairperson. Oh, sorry, I must start saying I received, and this time will be my last last conclusion in this space by saying, I won't go to a aha moment because I already said about what I'm taking home today, is to say the LEKGOTLA way reminds us that no person holds all wisdom required to address the challenges facing individuals, teams, organizations, and communities. Wisdom emerges when people come together, listen deeply, contribute respectively, reflect honestly, and take collective responsibility for the future they wish to create. That I'll conclude the session this afternoon or this evening with us, and I'll hand over the issue of the mind, the journey, and the destination in the hands of the chairperson. Hand it over to
Thank you so much, Rapula. I receive back. Yes, we apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Our programs are based on the principle we call the idea. We inform and entertain, we develop and educate, we empower and support, we associate and network. That's the idea, and I hope we have lived up to that expectation of the principle of the idea. Thank you for joining us on this COMETSA Tuesdays Live. We look forward to welcoming you again next Tuesday on COMETSA Television Network as we bring another interesting topic to you. Let me thank you, colleagues, Ndate Rapula Modibane, Ndate Frans, Mmakolobe, Ndate Lungisani Xhakaza, and then, of course, Ceci Helen Lebone. And many of you that are watching this evening, Ceci Tuli and Ceci Mkonyane there, and many others that I couldn't read their messages. Thank you so much for joining this anniversary session. I call it an anniversary session because the 1st of August is the founding date of COMETSA, so we're celebrating 29th anniversary this year. But we're looking forward next year to the big one, when we'll be celebrating 30 years of our existence as an organization. We were established on the 1st of August, 1997, and it's been a journey indeed. Thank you so much, colleagues. Stay in the studio as we disconnect from our beautiful, loving viewers out there all over the world. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, from wherever you are listening. Until we meet again.